especially someone as a journalist who often writes about other people and their books, and now the shoe comes on the other foot very squarely. So you're a little nervous about, what that will mean. But I've been really happy it's done, it was received well and all of that. And mostly I've been happy that, the book came out simultaneously in India, USA, and UK. And I've been happy that it was received well in all the places. People related to it in different ways, but I was grateful and happy that it had resonance in all the different places. In the end, the novel is actually a book about secrets. Everybody in the book has some kind of secret. Some of the secrets are sort of devastating and huge because it's about sexuality, and a secret about a marriage. Some of the secrets are more sort of pleasurable, more like secret pleasures. It is a book about families, and it's a book about family secrets. And hopefully, no matter how happy a family we all come from, we still all have our secrets. I'm absolutely happy and thrilled if somebody reading the book reads it as an LGBT book, as a gay book in a certain sense. I'm equally happy if someone reads it as a book about marriage, or someone reads it as a book about immigration and reverse immigration of people going to America and then coming back from America as well. So, all of those things are part of this book. But people, as I said, people find resonance in different parts of the book for them, and I'm happy that if someone sees it as a book in LGBT portrayals, I'm thrilled. The only thing I get nervous about when something like that happens is I do not want any of the characters in the book to then become put on a pedestal and become a sort of role model representative of this is how gay characters, and this is how a gay man in India's life is like, or this is what a woman, the wife of a gay man, because these are individuals and they make terrible choices, some of them, and they muddle through life. But I would hesitate to ascribe to them any kind of role model representative status, which you tend to do because there aren't enough of these characters in literature. So when one character comes out, you kind of pin all your desires on that character. And hopefully, as more books like this happen, one book will not need to bear that burden of representation. It almost seems to me, in retrospect, I thought about that. While I was writing it, I was following their stories, and I wanted to explore different facets of their life. As you said, it is written where each chapter is like a standalone short story. So, and it goes back and forth in time. So you see the childhood of one of the characters, and then you go forward in time and you see the person as an much older person as well, or an adolescent, grappling with his desire. But there was a starting image for the book, as it were. It's not the first chapter that was written, but the starting image, it occurs in the third chapter, and it is of I had this image, and I remember it clearly. I was driving in the US, and I suddenly had this image of this woman standing on the roof of a house in Kolkata, much like the kind of houses I grew up in, two-storied, single family homes, which are all being torn down now and turned into apartment buildings. And this woman is standing on the roof, and she has her arm on a little boy's shoulder, and they're watching this man go down the street, and he is waving, the little boy is waving, and the man, and the man and her husband is standing at the door watching him go, which ends up being a scene in the third chapter of the book. But to me, that image, crystallized the family, the neighborhood, as well as the whole story sort of rewound and fast forwarded from that scene in trying to figure out what is the relationship between these characters. And I was drawn to, someone asked me, like, do you want to write happier stories? And I think, but I am drawn to poignancy more than sadness, I am drawn to poignancy. And there was something very poignant about that scene, and it struck me. And so, in a way, the long roundabout way of answering your question, I think that poignancy for me was always much more captured in the story of Romola, the woman who discovers that she has married a man who is probably gay, and has to decide at that moment what she's going to do with this information. How will she react? How will she confront him? Will she hide it? What will she do? And that poignancy, that dilemma always stayed with me. If I had written it as a novel, straightforward novel, connecting all the pieces, there are certain scenes I would not have been able to avoid. I would have to deal with it. And so in this scene, but taking this chapter, each chapter almost being like a standalone story, it was almost like I was making these laser cuts into their lives. Every now and then, like I would swoop down, get a slice of their life, then swoop back out. And the pieces in between the slices, I have to leave to the reader's imagination. If the book was being set right now, it probably would not work anymore. Nobody writes a letter in an airmail letter like Sumit writes Avinash. And if nobody writes a letter with 3 pages in it, there's no way 20, 30, whatever years later, someone will discover one of the pages of the letter. If I was doing this book now, it would have to be a printout of an email, and one page of the email is missing, which is not going to carry the romance or poignancy of that letter at all. Likewise, if I realized later, so much of the book actually also takes place on terraces of houses. That is where Avinash and Sumit meet as young people. That is where they come back to. This is where a young Romola plays with the servant boy from next door, and sort of discovers about sexuality and power herself. All those rooftops themselves are disappearing in a city like Kolkata, because the houses are being torn down and turned into apartment buildings, and the roof is under lock and key because it belongs to everybody and thus to nobody. So in a way, not realizing it while writing it, this book is also, the objects in the book, the roof, the letter, and things are also a kind of it's a kind of a Valentine to disappearing India in a way. This book obviously would never have happened if I didn't grow up in Calcutta. I mean, when I was doing, and it's not just Calcutta, this is a very much a South Calcutta book. It doesn't matter to anybody outside the city whether it's South or North, but to me, I know it is a South Calcutta book. And when we were doing the cover, in fact, for the American version, it was very hard to explain to the designers abroad, what kind of, because they wanted a neighborhood, and I wanted it to make sure it looked like a South Calcutta neighborhood and not a North Calcutta neighborhood. Not that anybody in America might care. But I did. So Calcutta was sort of pivotal for me in terms of, because I was coming of age in a time when there was not really any internet. There was no way to talk about sexuality. There was no real conversation that was happening. Everything you found by blundering and stumbling. Not that unlike Avinash in the book, even though Avinash's character is not mine at all. But so in that sense, this book would not have been possible without me being in Calcutta. But on the other hand, the book would not have happened if I had not left Calcutta. I went away abroad, and in a way it allowed me to write about Calcutta in a way I might not have if I'd been there, still there. And then, but it got published only after I came back to India. So in a way, this is like sort of my life's journey of growing up in Calcutta, then moving to California, then coming back to Calcutta. Is all of those elements were required in order for the book to happen. Of course, it forms an important part of a person's life. I mean, there are, I think without luck or fate, I would not have been a writer. I wouldn't be here, sitting here, talking with you. I mean, all of these are sort of done because you took, your road, there were forks in your road at some point, and you took one fork or the other. When I quit my software job and decided to go in for journalism full time. At that time, I had no idea that that road would lead to a radio or journalism, or it would lead to a book, or that I would come back to India, or that I would be here as a, speaking at Ishq and talking to you about this book. So all of those are, accidental choices that we make. And most of life, I mean, I don't know if it's luck. I mean, it is about luck. I don't know if it's about fate, but it's, life is a lot of blundering. And you make a lot of mistakes, and then sometimes it's just like dating. You keep dating people, and you think like this one might work out, and then it doesn't work out, but you learn something from it. It's like stored away. It affects you in some way.